Following up from the 23rd day of the month of Menachem Av, and we are learning Pesachim Daf Tes Vav Amud Beis, continuing from our discussion Tes Vav Amud Aleph in the complex sugyas of Rabbi Chanina's Kanim, all these halachas of Tumah and Tahara. We are holding right at the end of Daf Tes Vav Amud Aleph, just to review very briefly. The Gemara was discussing exactly what midivreim means, where Rabbi Meir said that he learned that you can burn truma tahara with chulin tamim on Erev Pesach by the 5th hour of the day, and he had learned that midivreim, and we had attempted a number of solutions as to what exactly midivreim means. We suggested maybe it means that he learned it from Rabbi Chanina's Kanim, and we disputed that, rejected that, and then we suggested perhaps he is learning it from the din of Rabbi Akiva, and we disputed that as well. And then we had a possibility that maybe there was a different read in Rabbi Chanina's Kanim. We have left that to the side for the moment, and then we entertained the possibilities of Rish Lakish and Rav Nachman, who both argued that it was being learned that Rabbi Meir was learning not from the words of Rabbi Chanina's Kanim, not from the words of Rabbi Akiva, but from the words of Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. We then questioned what exactly does it mean, Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. It would only be the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, and we concluded, that it is in fact only the words of Rabbi Yeshua, and that we had learned it. Rabbi Meir had learned it from the discussion that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua were having, and then the Gemara challenged us from the statement of Rava. Rava challenges Rav Nachman from the Mishnah, because Rabbi Yossi had said back to Rav Meir in that Mishnah, he says to him, Rav Meir, I don't agree with you. Why don't I agree with you? Because just back from the Mishnah on Daf Yud Daled Amud Aleph, Amar Rav Meir says, Midivrem lamad shesofrin truma tahara im hatmei Pesach, that you can burn the truma tahara with the truma tamei on Pesach, meaning on Erev Pesach. Amar Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi says, Ein lahi amida. No, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That the comparison doesn't work. Meaning, you want to say midivreim, and I'm saying no, that's not midivreim. That's not midivreim at all. Now, what exactly is this piece of the conversation? So, just looking at the end of Daf Tasav Amud Aleph, just to read it very briefly again. Amar Rabbi Yossi, what exactly is Rabbi Yossi saying here? You want to compare these two things that don't compare at all. Why? Because when Rabbi Chanina's Kahanim was telling us about the halachas of burning basar that was tameh with an avatum, with basar that was tameh with a vladatuma, so that was talking about a case of tameh and tameh. And if you wanted to say perhaps that this is a din of Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva was saying that Rabbi Meir was learning from Rabbi Akiva, his Rabbi, that he was learning the din that you could burn the chulin with the truma on Erev Pesach, because of the din of Rabbi Akiva saying that you could burn the oil in a lamp that was tameh. So the truma oil that was puzzled with in a lamp that was tameh. So it says Rabbi Yossi, no, that would be a case of puzzle and tameh. And af anu maidim 5 lines from the bottom. Af anu maidim mit truma shenit mit bladetuma shesavrin asem mit truma shenit beis ba'avatuma. And we agree that if you had truma that was that became tameh with a lesser degree of tuma, that you could burn it with truma that was tameh with a higher degree of tuma. Aval hech nisraf atzluye matmeya. But how could you possibly burn the truma that is tluya, that is suffik tameh, suffik tahar imatmeh with truma with chulin that's tameh? Shemi yave Eliyavi tarel. Maybe Eliyahu is going to come. He's going to be mitaret. And Rashi pointed out to us yesterday that Eliyahu is not going to come on Erev Yantiv. He's going to come afterwards and tell you that you had done the wrong thing. What is the upshot of all of this? Is that it seems to be that Rabbi Yossi is challenging Rabbi Meir from Rabbi Chanina's Kanim and from Rabbi Akiva, meaning midivreim. Rabbi Yossi is understanding Rabbi Meir is learning from Rabbi Chanina's Kanim or from Rabbi Akiva, and that is what he is challenging him from. Now, there's an addition to that Tosefta that we've just quoted, which is not relevant for our discussion yet. Rashi tells us, "Hapigul v'hanoisar ve'atame," with regards to pigul. Pickle is korban that the kohen had the wrong intentions to eat it. A noser is meat of a korban that was left of an atan tameh, meat of a korban that was left that became tameh. In those cases, Beis Shammai says, "Ein nisrafin kachas." You're not allowed to burn them all together. Beis Hillel tells you, "Nisrafin kachas," you can burn them all together. Now, that is parenthetical. Rashi tells us in the Dibra Masach Pigul, "Lo tzorech hacha ela mesayim habraysa." You don't need this for this discussion now. It is just the end of that braysa, that Tosefta, that is quoted at the end there. We'll see it a little bit later on. We don't need that for now, so hold that parenthetically. Says the Gemara as follows. And if you, Rav Nachman, this is the end of the challenge that Rava issues against Rav Nachman, if you, Rav Nachman, hold that that Rav Meir is learning from Rabbi Yeshua, as you have so aptly proven, so then then why is Rabbi Yossi challenging him from the case of Rabbi Chanan Niskanakanim? He's saying it doesn't make sense that you would have learned this from Rabbi Chanan Niskanakanim. He didn't. So why is Rabbi Yossi challenging him as such? Rav Nachman says back to Rava, Rabbi Yossi lavadate. Rabbi Yossi didn't know what Rabbi Meir was learning it from. Dehu Savar, he thought he thought that Rav Nachman Rav Nachman says that Rabbi Yossi thought that Rav Meir was learning it from Rabbi Chanan Niskan Kahanim. Va'amarlein, he says to him, Anamid Rabbi Yeshua Kamina, and he says to him, that's not true. I'm learning it from Rabbi Yeshua. Va'amarlein, and it is at that point that Rabbi Yossi says back to him the end of our Mishnah. Meaning that the Tosefta is filling in a piece of the conversation that we didn't have in the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah told us, just back in the Mishnah here for a second, is that after Rabbi Yossi says, Enahi Hamida, that doesn't make sense. So that's where the Tosefta is in. And then Rabbi Yossi continues. Both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua believe that you should burn them separately. The only machlokes is on the Tluya and the Tameh. But that wouldn't be a good proof for you at all. Meaning that end of the Mishnah, of our Mishnah, in Yudal and Aleph, is not a unanimous approach. That is Rabbi Yossi telling Rabbi Meir why he thinks that Rabbi Yeshua disagrees with him, that you cannot learn from Rabbi Yeshua either. So he says, he says, Afilu Rabbi Yeshua Nami, even according to Rabbi Yeshua, Eina Hiamida, it wouldn't make any sense. Because Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer both say that you should burn them separately. And then, why is this not comparable? Why is it not comparable? So we say, Mida umidahi. Of course it's comparable. Of course it's comparable. What does that mean? It's not comparable. And Reb Meir would say back to him, it is absolutely entirely comparable. Mida umidahi, says Rashi, daha tahara gemurahi. Because the case of Rabbi Yeshua that we are learning from is not from the case of Tluya and Tameh by Truma. We're learning it from the case of the barrel that broke at the top of the shelf and it is dripping into the bottom of the shelf. And Rabbi Yeshua told us that since it's about to be destroyed, meaning since the Truma is about to become Tameh anyway, you can catch it in a kli that's Tameh and save your chulin underneath it. So, why is that not the midah? Midah here. Of course, that's exactly the same case. That's exactly the same case because you're about to have truma that's going to become aser. You can't eat it. You can't use it. You can't sell it. It becomes aser completely from the 5th hour of the day, midrabanan. And Rabbi Yeshua had said in such a case that you were allowed to be methamet with the wine that's dripping down because it's about to become tameh anyway. It's about to become unusable. Mido midahi. Says the Gemara, no. How would Rabbi Yossi address this? He says, Shani Hasam. That's different. De'ika hefsid chulin. Because what's happening there? You're catching it in a kli that's tameh in order to save your chulin. Yeah, you're trying to save your chulin. That's why he says "Ene hiamida." It doesn't make sense, Reb Meir, for you to learn from Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua is saying that the Chachamim were makel in a case, not just that you're allowed to be metame b'yadayim just because because the truma is about to be destroyed. No, you're allowed to be metame the truma b'yadayim because you also have the additional factor of hefsed chulin, because you're about to lose a tremendous investment of all of the chulin wine that you have sitting underneath it. Says the Gemara, Maskif la Rav Yirmiyah. Rav Yirmiyah challenged this understanding. Masnisinami ikehefsed de'etzim. In our Mishnah, when Rav Meir says that he learns it from Rav Yeshua, there's a hefsed de'etzim, meaning if we tell you that you're not allowed to burn your chulin with your truma together on Erev Pesach, what does that mean? It means that you have to make two separate fires, which means that you have to have double the amount of fuel. You have to have one chulin fire and one truma fire. That's also a hefsed. You're also going to end up losing money there. It's exactly the same case. Says the Gemara, Amar lei hahu sava. There was an elderly Talmud Chacham that was in the Beis Medrash that said to Rav Yirmiyah, no, lehefsed meruba chashashu. The Chachamim were mekel, meaning Rav Yeshua holds that the Chachamim mekel. We should be mekel. It's correct to be lenient in a case of hefsed meruba. Hefsed meruba means you're about to lose a barrel of wine. Lehefsed muat leichashashu. But when it comes to losing out on a couple of extra twigs of wood, they were not so makbid. They were not so worried about it. In order to prevent you from being metame the truma b'yadayim, we're not going to let you just save on a couple of twigs of wood. So Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Machlokes b'sheish. Now, switching gears to the discussion of what exactly is the time period of the Issur D'Oraisa versus the Issur D'Rabbanan. Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. It says Rabbi Asi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Machlokes b'sheish. The machlokes that they have is only by the 6th hour. It says Rashi shadain ein al hatahira ela Issur D'Rabbanan. From hour number 5 to hour number 6 of the day, meaning in the 6th hour of the day up until midday, there's only an Issur D'Rabbanan. And therefore, there is a machlokes whether you could burn the truma tameh with the truma with the chulin that is tameh, because there you're being metameh b'yadayim, and on a level of daraisa, it is still good to eat. Aval b'sheva, but by the 7th hour of the day, divrei hakol, everybody agrees, sarfin, that you burn them together. Everybody's going to agree that you're allowed to burn them together. And Rashi says, yeah, udivrei hakol af le Rabbi Yossi sarfin. Even according to Rabbi Yossi, you'd be able to burn them all together. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Amar le Reb Zera Reb Asi, says Reb Zera to Reb Asi, who quoted the din of Rabbi Yochanan. Nema kasav Rabbi Yochanan. Let's assume that Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion that masnisin, that the beginning of the Mishnah with regards to Reb Chanina Eskan Kalim, that masnisin ba'ava tumah deraisa is talking about a case of an av hatuma on a level of deraisa, vlada tumah derabanan, and the vlada tumah is derabanan. And now we can reinterpret this whole Mishnah. Umay midivrayim, and what does midivrayim mean? When Reb Meir says I learned midivrayim, it means midivrayim midivrei Rabbi Chanina Eskan Kalim. We can go back to saying that it's midivrei Rabbi Chanina Eskan Kalim, which is the simpler read of the Mishnah and the more challenging, more significant chiddush of Rabbi Chanina Eskan Kalim, that you can metame a deraisa with a derabanan, that you can put those two things together. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yochanan, the machlokes is in the 6th hour. The machlokes is in the 6th hour, but in the 7th hour, everybody agrees that you can burn them together. Which means that what's the machlokes is, in theory, when you have a deraisa, tuma and a derabanan inability to use. The Rabbanan said you're not allowed to use this. So, if midaraisa, everybody would agree that by the 7th hour, by 12 noon, you're allowed to burn it all together. So then the machlokes is now being discussed as Reb Meir. I think that Rabbi Chanina Eskan Kalim would agree with me that this is a din of tuma on a level of deraisa and an isur on a level of derabanan. You put them all together. Says the Gemara Amar Lei, says it says Rabbi Asi, back to Rabbi Zera, Amar Lei in. Yeah, exactly. That is what I hold. It says Itmar Nami. And we have a statement to back this up from the Amoraim. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says that it's true that Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim is talking about an Avatuma Daraisa and a Vladatuma Darabanan, and the Vladatuma is only an Issa Darabanan. What is Midivrei? Midivrei Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim. That is exactly how Rabbi Yochanan learned this Mishnah. Umachloikis, and the Machloikis is b'sheish. The Machloikis in the 6th hour of the day, but in the 7th hour of the day, Divrei Kol Sarfin. Everybody agrees that you are permitted to burn them together. Says the Gemara, so now we're going to come to the end of the Tosefta that we had said before. Let's say that the end of the Tosefta is actually in support of this reading of Rabbi Yochanan. Maybe this is going to support him. In these 3 cases, Pigul, Noser and Tameh. Beishamah was of the opinion that you are not allowed to burn all 3 of these things together. Why? Because you have Pigul, which is not Tameh, Noser, which is not Tameh, and Tameh, which is Tameh. So you can't use any of these things on a level of Daraisa. They're all excluded from usage. There's nothing that you can do except for burn them. The chiyuv is that you now have to burn this meat, but you cannot be metameh. Beis Hillel says that you do burn them all together. You do burn them all together. Meaning, according to Beis Hillel, you burn Pigul, Noser, and Tameh together because they are all Aser at this point in time, even though one of them is Tameh and one of them is not Tameh. That seems to be supporting the din of Rabbi Yochanan that says that once the Torah tells you on a level of Daraisa that you cannot use this Truma, so then even though it's Tahar, you're allowed to be Metameh with something else that also cannot be used, that has to be burnt. Says the Gemara, no, Shani Hasam. Maybe there's a difference there. The Islahu Tumah Midrabanan. Because in our case, there's a tumah on a level of the Rabbanan. Meaning, in the case of Pigul and Noser and Tameh, those things, according to Beis Hillel, they can all be burned together. But those things don't have a tumah on a level of the Rabbanan. Those things, you're burning them all together. They have an issue deraisa. There's no tumah on a level of the Rabbanan. But Shani Hasam. With regards to Shani Hasam, it is different than Rashi tells us. This is Shani Hasam. He says, Meha loy mistayel Rabbi Yochanan va'afilu be'sheva emelach the iflu Rabbi Yossi va'afal gav the asira hal ve'ein aleh shem tuma loy metamin le. Meaning, Rabbi Yochanan wanted to tell us that even Rabbi Yossi would hold that that by the 7th hour you are allowed to burn all of them together, because that's exactly the same din as Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel was the opinion that we pass on, that you can burn Pigul, Noser, and Tameh all together. Says the Gemara Shani Hasam, no, it's different over there, because this is the end of the Rashi. Because even though on a level of Deraisa they are not Tameh, Pigul and Noser are Metamin Esayadayim. They are going to be Metame your hands. Meaning, we hold of a Tumah D'Rabbanan in this, in Pigul and Noser. As opposed to in our Mishnah, maybe Rabbi Yossi wouldn't agree, because in our Mishnah you have Truma, which is still entirely Tahara. It's Asr, but it's entirely Tahara. To burn that with Chul and Tamim is still going to be Metam V'Yadayim, and there isn't even a level of Tumah on a level of D'Rabbanan there. So we say, no, maybe the following brisa is going to be in support of Rabbi Yochanan. What brisa is going to support Rabbi Yochanan now? Hapas she ifsha, if you have bread that became moldy, v'nifsala melecha la'adam, and now can no longer be eaten by a person, but a dog could eat it, metama tumas ochlin, it could still create tumah, it can still become tameh with tumas ochlin. Bekabetza v'nizrafas, when it is the size of an egg, so long as it has sufficient quantity, it's the size of an egg, v'nizrafas, and it will need to be burnt. Meaning, a person cannot eat it, but a dog can eat it. It could still have tumah. It could still become tameh. Meaning, not everything can become tameh. It has to be other adam, kelim, ochel, mashkim, people or vessels or food or drink. But if something is no longer food, then it cannot become tameh. And in this case, says the brisa, the Tana of the brisa is telling us that so long as the dog could still eat it, it could still be mekabel tumah. And what's the end? V'nisrefes, and it is burnt im hatmeya b'Pesach, together with something that is tamei on Pesach. Together with something that's tamei means it's truma tahara that became moldy entirely. A dog would eat it, a person would not, but it's still entirely tahara. You can burn it with something that's tamei in advance of Pesach. Says the Gemara, no, shani hasam. It's different there. Why? The afra ba'almahu, because it is not food any longer, meaning it is dust. It is afra ba'alma. What does that mean? That it is now going to be considered to be afra da'alma. It is no longer food. So apparently, what that means is that it doesn't have the same status of care that the Chacham, the Torah would care about, not being metamet. Because though it is true that you need to burn it, because it could still be eaten by a dog, it doesn't have the concern of we need to make sure that we take care of this truma, and that's the Gemara's answer here. Says the Gemara, Ihachi, if this is so, if this is all true, that Rabbi Yochanan is correct, and he learns from Reb Meir the way that and Reb Meir is learning from Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim. So then, how do you end up with the end of the Mishnah? Iachi, if this is so, my moida. What does it mean that moida Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua? Meaning, what is the agreement that exists at the end of the Mishnah according to Rabbi Yossi? So he says, Hachi kamar le Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Meir. This is what Rabbi Yossi is saying to Rabbi Meir. I feel Rabbi Yeshua, even according to Rabbi Yeshua, Demekel, who is lenient. He is lenient. He says, Kimekel, the only place that he's going to be lenient is Bitzluya Utmea, with a suffix Tameh, together with something that's Tameh. But if it is entirely Tahar, with something that is entirely Tameh, then even Rabbi Yeshua is not going to agree. He's not going to be Mekel. Ihachi, if this is so, Amai Einahi Hamida. Well then, if this is so, then why is it not a good comparison? Mida umidahi. It is a perfectly good comparison. And now we're challenging the Mishnah from the other side. Meaning, what is now that Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim is saying that this is a din of that it's a din of tuma on a level of daraisa being burnt with tuma on a level of darabanan, and that this is and Rabbi Meir is saying, I'm learning from that din. That on Erev Pesach you could have a truma, which is entirely tahar, but it is an issur d'Rabbanan being burnt with chulin, which is tameh. The conversation of Rabbi Yeshua, maybe you can't prove anything from Rabbi Yeshua, but he's proving it from Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim. Why is this not a good midah to learn from that? So Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah hacha bebasar sheniba b'mashkin sheniba macham asheretz. Now, so he says that according to the way that Rabbi Yosef would be learning Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim is hacha bebasar sheniba b'mashkin sheniba macham asheretz. What exactly is the case of this meat that became tamei that Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim is talking about? It's meat that became tamei as a result of liquids that had tuma sheretz. That meaning you had sheretz that touched the liquid. And now we have a fundamental machlokes with regards to the tum and tara of liquids. This is an old machlokes that each one is going according to their rationale. They are consistent in the way that they learn the sugi. Reb Meir is consistent with his opinion. The Amar, he says, tumas mashkin l'tamei achirim derabanan, that when something becomes tamei through tumas mashkin, the mashke can only make something tamei on a level of derabanan. Rabbi Yossi holds, consistent with his opinion, the Amar tumas mashkin l'tamei achirim deraisa, that what Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim is talking about is tuma deraisa with tuma deraisa. Which means that according to the way Reb Meir understands, is the meat that became tamei, the lower level of tuma, is only a lower level of tuma on a level of the rabbanan, and therefore you can learn a din of an issur d'Rabbanan to be burnt with a chulin that is tamei d'oraisa. According to Rabbi Yossi, you cannot learn that at all because the meat is, both of them are d'oraisas. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim is talking about tuma d'oraisa with tuma d'oraisa. And according to Reb Meir, he's talking about Tumah D'Oraisa with Tumah D'Rabbanan, and that's why Reb Meir can learn that din, because he holds differently with regards to the question of transference of Tuma from mashkin, from liquids, on a level of deraisa. He holds that it's all derabanan. And we are then going to see this all brought down in the brisa on tomorrow's Amud. And big shakach for everybody for following along. It's a complicated sugya, but buckle up. All of these things are excellent ideas and beautiful pieces of Torah that we are uniquely able to learn together in these sugyas. So big shakach. Have a wonderful evening. I will see you all 6:15 tomorrow morning.